Wow, that Sixers game was crazy. Honestly, I thought that it was one of these games where originally it looked like a blowout. It looked like it was going to be like the Miami Knicks game where they just take a big lead early, or at least early enough to the point where the other team just never comes back from it, right? And they keep that consistency. But in the end, with that fourth quarter by the Celtics, where they just put up 9 points and forced overtime, that really made this game competitive. I do believe that this game showed something though. Jason Tatum might not be ready to be the best player on a team, and that's just something that we need to deal with because look, he had 18 rebounds and 24 points this game. But if you know what happened, then he shot terribly for the first half of the game, and he shot 1 for 6 from three and 9 for 20 from the field. I know that a lot of these were clutch buckets, but the fact that it took your entire team's effort, Al Horford having to stop Embiid, Marcus Smart having to have probably the most efficient three-point shooting game that he's had in the playoffs so far, or close to it, and dropped 21 points and 7 assists. Derek White having just a really efficient 12 points and we know that he always plays great defense, and Jaylen Brown having an above-average efficiency game except from three, and dropping 23 points and 5 assists. Like, it took all of these things going right just for the Celtics to win this game. So this is where we bring up the question, is he good enough to run his own team? Like, of course he is, but what is the ceiling? Because I know that a lot of people have talked about, oh, let's break the Jays up, that should happen. And for a lot of that, a lot of people said, oh, but they're too young, give them some time. And then after last year, it was, oh, they made the finals. You got to give them more time because, of course. Also, that I don't like how they're running their team. If you look at the Sixers, they're running an 8-man rotation, but their minutes are divided pretty well, right? Like, yeah, their stars get minutes, but this was an overtime game. With this one, like, you see that the person who got the most minutes in Philly was James Harden, right? And then Embiid, which shows a lot about, like, oh, what type of offense are they running? They're obviously running it through their stars, and they're playing most of the game, but their stars can take it, and they came up clutch, and they had both phenomenal games. With Boston, they played their guys 40 minutes, especially Jason Tatum 47 and Jaylen Brown 44. And these guys scored 20. Now, they scored 20, they were good, they played well. I mean, Jason mid. But it's like, really, should you open your rotation more like you did in last year's playoff? Last year's playoff for the Celtics was really good because their entire lineup ate, and that was part of the Ime Udoka system where they didn't want to run 8-mans last year. And even if they did, then they got guys like Payne Pritchard to be big for them, Luke Cornett to be good for them, and Grant Williams played really big minutes for them. This year he played 12 minutes. Like, look at the last game from last year where they played Milwaukee in the game 7 and Grant Williams hit 4 threes. I'm pretty sure it was 4 threes. I don't remember. I know that they just left him open and he scored like 20 points that game. I think he scored more than 4 threes. So really, in my opinion, what we have to look at is, are these people ready for the playoffs? And is this sustainable? Like Boston, we've seen them falter. They went down 2 games to Atlanta. And that shouldn't happen. Atlanta's a team which got swept by Miami last year. Miami's an 8th seed this year, and they would have swept Atlanta with the way that they're playing. Now, to talk about the Sixers and to stop talking about the Celtics' struggles and how they look, like PJ Tucker's insane because he's one of those guys he's one of the guys who had a positive plus minus. He had a +1, but he shot inefficiently and had 6 points. And that just tells you so much about his game. He's just a hustler. He plays defense. He plays rough. He gets into the other team's head. And even if he's not making shots, then he will impact the game. I do want to say that Tobias Harris has been incredible. He didn't play that well this game, but I do think that when they needed him the most, he did step up. I think that now it's just that his touches are getting removed and he has to play such big minutes, so it's kind of like a weird contrast with him. But he's still a huge net positive. I do want to say that James Harden, shout out to James Harden. because he had 42 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds. Almost a 40-point triple double with 4 steals and a block and 1 turnover. Honestly, in my opinion, James Harden was the MVP of this game, regardless of Embiid's like 34 and 13 with 4 assists and 1 block and 1 steal. But I think that James Harden this game, just if you watch the game, he just dominated. He hit the game tying floater. He also hit the game winning 3. And in the end, I feel like really James Harden just unlocked a different mode this game. I feel like it was even better than his 45-point performance, because even though, yes, in that one he carried them with no Embiid, in my opinion, with this one, it was like when he had the ball, he was going to do something. Also, to get on talking about the next game, I want to talk about the Denver and Suns series. That 4th game was insanely good. Those two teams are built to play each other. They both contrast each other's weaknesses so well, right? Like Denver's a big man heavy team which plays a pass friendly game, right? And Phoenix is a team which barely can guard the perimeter, and their big man is kind of soft, right? DeAndre Ayton is just soft. And then you have a team like the Suns, which all they have is perimeter scoring, perimeter shooting, and their big men are just like really hyper effective big men who don't miss a lot of shots, like Jock Landale, DeAndre Ayton, and then they have perimeter guys like Landry Shamet, Josh Okogie, TJ Warren, which could just kill you from outside if you leave them open, right? And the Nuggets don't really have that much perimeter defense, and let's talk about it, because Jamal Murray is pretty decent, right? MPJ sucks, and then KCP is good, but KCP is also old, so you can't really keep him in the game for that long. So they contrast each other's weaknesses really well, and in my opinion, that makes an interesting series. What I do want to see is how the home court advantage of Denver affects this game. And we all know that it's tougher to play Denver because they have altitude, which a lot of other teams, I'm pretty sure no other team has, like that significant amount of altitude. That's why they called Mile High City. So when the Suns went to Denver, they looked gassed. They looked like they could barely score. And Devin Booker, who's been on an absolute mission this playoffs, and in my opinion has been the best player aside from Jimmy Butler. And the only reason why Jimmy's better is because he plays lockdown defense, is because his team is winning more games than the Suns are. Like the Suns are getting pushed farther, right? Like they're 2-2 right now with Denver. Miami's 2-1, and they have home court advantage this game. But in my opinion, Devin Booker's been absolutely insane, clutch, just scoring 36 a game. He scored 36 yesterday, and Kevin Durant scored 36, and it just really looked like they got everything that they wanted. Not in a bad sense, but in the sense of that, like, they wanted a shot, they would get the space to shoot it, and then they would make it. And that's something that we really don't see. You know, in the regular season, if you watch the games compared to playoff basketball, you could see that the games are much faster and that people shoot dumber shots, and superstars are not really worried that much about shooting efficiently. But in the playoffs, I saw Devin Booker come off driving, right? Then he dribbled inside, put the ball in the air, and he had 2 defenders at him with their hands up in the air. He drilled that 3 to make the game. I think it was 95-95 or 92-92. That was one of the greatest shots I've ever seen Devin Booker make, and I believe that also comes from what the Mavericks did them last year. Let's say last year the Mavericks mollywopped them in the playoffs, and I believe that Devin Booker's back on a mission, and I believe that KD's back on a mission because of what Boston did last year. Phoenix looks scary, Denver looks scary. As Jokic, I gotta say, he dropped 50 points and a double-double, but with assists, not rebounds. And in my opinion, that was just absurd. I think that he's really showing that effective offense works in the playoffs, that you don't need to be the flashiest, that you could literally just use your weight and your strength around the rim, and that you'll get every shot you want as long as the other big man is not Al Horford, right? Because He's been insane. But yeah, so I believe that these series have been very interesting, and I'm ready for tonight. Lakers, Warriors, and Heat, Knicks. That's gonna be insane.